Okay, I've been talking about the hope of Israel, which was Paul's hermeneutic. How he explains that in Romans chapter 9, using calling verses from Hosea 1 and 2 fulfilled as the Gentiles have gotten saved. I went back to Hosea 1 and read verses 2 through the end of the chapter. And at the end of the chapter, we read that how in we'll go back to near the end of verse 10. Ye are not my people, and even they shall be called sons of the living God. That's the hope of Israel, that the ones who are called not my people shall be called the sons of the living God. And then that's the sons of Israel. And then verse 11 says, the children of Judah shall be gathered together, and the children of Israel, they're going to be gathered together, and shall appoint for themselves one head, and shall come up out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel. Now, we talked about how Jezreel stood for the kingdom of the house of Israel, which had ceased, but now we're talking about a restoration of the kingdom of the house of Israel. That happened when Jesus drank the fruit of the vine while he was still on the cross, having the night before begun or initiated several of his disciples into a new covenant with the house of Israel. God's new covenant with the house of Israel. We know that among them were brothers of Jesus, who were, of course, of the house of Judah. We know that later Paul, who was one of the apostles, was from the house of Benjamin. We know that many of the Levites became believers. So all of these people who came into the God's new covenant with the house of Israel, the kingdom of the house of Israel, were born again people. They were born again. They had been born one time. Now they're born again, and now they're part of a new nation. They're new creatures in a new nation. And Jezreel is the kingdom of the house of Israel that it says comes up out of the land. So we know that this hope of Israel thing really made the Jews mad, and they persecuted the believers, and these who had been born again eventually left Jerusalem. They came up out of the land, and they scattered in other cities. Now that thing about came up out of the land is important. We went back to going back to the first verse that I read, verse 2. We talked about how the woman that bore Hosea's first child was compared to the land of Israel. As we go into chapter 2, verse 1, we have, say to your brother, my people, and to your sister, pitied. So, who had a brother and sister named Pitied? That was Jezreel. The kingdom of the house of Israel had a sister, that was the house of Israel, called not Pitied, and a brother, which stood for the sons of Israel, called not my people, which became known as the sons of the living God. So, Jezreel is saying to his brother and sister, now you're my people. Now you're my people. Now you're pitied. Now go plead with your mother. Who was their mother? The mother was the land of Israel. See, the Lord left the land of Israel because she was an adulteress. She was a prostitute. She entertained many false gods and had children by them. But now the Lord's saying, plead with your mother, plead with the land, for she is not my wife, and I am not her husband. And I will remove her fornication out of my presence, and her adultery from between her breasts. So, we have the kingdom of the house of Israel restored. And when Peter asked Jesus, will you return restore the kingdom to Israel, Jesus says it's not for you to know. Part of the hope of Israel is that the kingdom of the house of Israel, the sons of Israel, the house of Israel, be restored to the land of Israel. And that is a future event, and that is why New Covenant Israel theology is futurist to some degree.